العلم أشراف مطلوب وطالبه لله أكرام من يمشي على قدم. العلم نور مبين يستضيء به أهل السعادات والجهال في الظلم.
To reach this conclusion through his own ijtihad and analytical reasoning. Impossible, he couldn't. So he must have heard it from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is why the ulama of hadith, they have a principle which is, if a companion mentions something which is from ilmul ghayb, from the knowledge of the unseen, they tell us something that will happen in the future. They tell us something in Jannah, about Nar, something that they could not reach through their own analytical reasoning, and they say it and they don't attribute it to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's still considered to be like a statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's considered min hukm. It's known as marfu'un hukman. Okay, it's marfu' hukman. It's as though the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said it, although they didn't ascribe it to him. There is no way they could have reached this through their own analytical reasoning. However, if they tell us of a fiqh issue, مثلا, and they say the ruling on this is that it is haram or wajib, and it's an issue pertaining to fiqh, and then this is something that is ascribed to themselves and not to the Prophet ﷺ. So if Ibn Mas'ud مثلا says هذا haram, هذا wajib, هذا halal, or this is not, we shouldn't do this, or this is how, يعني this is known as marfu' mahkum. يعني this is known as this is considered to be something that is mawqufun ala sahabi. Okay, so that is the difference. So this athar by Abdullah ibn Amr, طوبى للغرباء الذين يصلحون إذا فسد الناس, is an athar which is considered to be from the statements of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then dalil number 4 is the hadith of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, where he says فطوبى يومئذ للغرباء إذا فسد الناس. This is a narration narrated by Al-Imam Ahmad in his Musnad, and it is considered to be authentic. Okay, so here the Prophet says فطوبى للغرباء إذا فسد الناس. فطوبى يومئذ للغرباء إذا فسد الناس. Okay, so on that day فطوبى يومئذ للغرباء إذا فسد الناس. So on that day, طوبى, may they have Jannah, those who are strangers, إذا فسد الناس يومئذ للغرباء, when everyone else is corrupt around them. When everyone else is corrupt around them. Okay, so with regards to the first narration, the previous narration, of Abdullah ibn Amr, where he describes the ghuraba as those who rectify what everyone else has corrupted, the scholars, they say, and from amongst them is Ibn Rajab, in his explanation of this hadith, they say that this is the Prophet here sallallahu alaihi wasallam is describing the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, because they are those who rectify what everyone else has corrupted from the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he's describing the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. As for this hadith here, فَطُوبَى يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْغُرَبَاءِ إِذَا فَسَدَ النَّاسِ, then here the Prophet ﷺ is describing the laymen of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the righteous worshippers, who may not have a lot of knowledge to be able to correct the mistakes of others, but they themselves are righteous, and they know what is right and what is wrong, but their level of knowledge is not they don't have the level of knowledge to rectify, to call, to preach, to invite, to advise others and correct their mistakes. Okay, so in both ahadith, the first hadith mentions the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and the second hadith mentions the awam of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and the layman, the general common people from the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Okay, so that is the difference. So that we move on now to the next dalil number 6. Dalil number 6. وعن أبي أمية. Let me see if anyone has any questions. So Hamda says, when you say they enjoin that good and forbid that which is evil, is that within themselves only? No, that's within, they enjoin that which is good and forbid that which is evil within themselves, and also to those people who they are able to command and have an influence over. So they say stay away from haram, seek that which Allah is pleased with. Naam. So it's, and everyone else, anyone they have an influence over, they tell them and they enjoin them. So obviously you have to use common sense, and you have to make sure that no harm will come to you first and foremost, and apply the principles of al-amr bil ma'ruf and nahy anil munkar. However, generally speaking, if they are a father مثلا, or a mother, and they see their child مثلا, committing an act of sin or not waking up for the salah مثلا, not praying, then it is upon them to enjoin that which is good and forbid that which is evil. It is upon them to make sure that their child observes the prayer and so on and so forth. Is there a PDF in English? Yes, I'm not sure. I can't. Allahu a'lam, ma adri. Maybe someone can. Yes, Mohamed has just mentioned there. Now, طيب. نعم. So دليل number 6 عن أبي أمية قال. Abu Umayyah, he says here, سألت أبا ثعلب الخشني. I asked Abu Tha'laba al-Khushani. فقلت, I said, يا أبا ثعلبة, أو أبو ثعلبة, كيف تقول في هذه الآية? So Abu Tha'laba, Abu Umayyah, he says, I asked Abu Tha'laba al-Khushani, okay, the Sahabi radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, regarding this verse. يا أيها الذين آمنوا عليكم أنفسكم لا يضركم من ضل إذا اهتديتم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, O you who believe, عليكم أنفسكم, O you who believe, عليكم أنفسكم, upon you is responsibility for yourselves. لا يضركم من ضل إذا اهتديتم. Those who have gone astray will not harm you, will not harm you. قال, he said, أما والله لقد سألت عنها خبيرا. He said, oh, by Allah, I asked someone who is more knowledgeable than me, someone who is knowledgeable of this verse. سألت عنها رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. I asked the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم about this verse. فقال, and he said, بل, rather, ائتمروا بالمعروف وتناهوا عن المنكر. Enjoin that which is good and forbid each other from that which is evil. حتى إذا رأيتم شحا مطاعا. Until you see, okay, until these things occur, until you see شحا مطاعا, until you see diligence and eagerness over the dunya being obeyed, until you see شحا مطاعا, يعني miserliness, بخل, until you see the love of the dunya being obeyed, وهوى متبعا, and desires being followed, وَالدُّنْيَا مُؤْثَرَةً, and the world being, and the dunya being chosen over the akhirah. And until you see إِعْجَابَ كُلِّ ذِي رَأْيٍ بِرَأْيِهِ, until you see that everyone is amazed with his or her own opinion. فَعَلَيْكَ, if you see this, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, فَعَلَيْكَ بِنَفْسِكَ, then focus on yourself. Worry about yourself and those you are responsible for. وَدَعْ عَنْكَ الْعَوَامِ, and leave off and abandon the issues of the laymen and the awam and everyone mentioning their own opinion on every matter. Abandon all of these things. فَإِنَّ مِنْ وَرَائِكُمْ أَيَّامَ الصَّبْرِ, for indeed they will come after you, they will come before you, and there will be days of patience, days that require you to be very patient. الْقَابِضُ فِيهِنَّ عَلَى دِينِهِ كَالْقَابِضِ عَلَى الْجَمْرِ, the one who holds firm to his religion is like the one who holds firm to a hot coal, to something very hot. لِلْعَامِلِ فِيهِنَّ مِثْلُ أَجْرِ خَمْسِينَ رَجُلًا, the one who does righteous actions from amongst these people while in this state, مثل أجر خمسين رجلا, has the reward of 50 men. يعملون مثل عملكم, 50 men who do the same righteous actions as you, as your actions. يعني speaking to the prophets, to the companions. قلنا, then the companions, they said, منا أو منهم, يعني from us, يعني 15 men from amongst us companions, or 50 men from amongst them. قال, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, بل, no, rather, minkum, from amongst you. And this is narrated by Imam Abu Dawood and At-Tirmidhi. So this hadith here is the dilala is very clear. This hadith, the dilala is very clear. As you can see here, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, here يعني first and foremost, before we continue with the fiqh of the hadith, Ibn Hajar, he graded this hadith as Hasan in Fath al-Bari. So this hadith is graded as Hasan, which is يعني a grading which is obviously it's authentic, but it's not considered to be Sahih, but it's considered to be Hasan. يعني it's authentic. It's a hadith that can be used as a dalil. Okay, so the dilala of this hadith is first and foremost here the Prophet ﷺ clearly tells us of ghurbat, of the strangeness of Islam in days of patience. He calls these days the days of that require that require patience. He calls them ayyamus sabr. Why are they ayyamus sabr? Because the person who does righteous actions on those days, they have to be very patient in observing these righteous actions because of all of the temptations that surround them, all of the fitan that surround them. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Al-qabidu fihinna fa inna min waraikum ayyam as-sabr. He says, Al-qabidu fi, he says, the one who basically, Al-qabidu fihinna ala dinihi kal-qabiti ala al-jamr. And the one who holds firm to his religion on that day is like the person who holds firm to a hot coal. And this is also a clear indication that if that's the case, then obviously the vast majority of people are not going to be holding to Islam. They're going to drop it just like someone drops a hot coal. And the people who are holding onto Islam, because of their observance and their application of the religion of Islam, they will be harmed and they will lose out on a lot of the dunya. They may be, for example, someone who is forced, or someone who مثلا does not wish to sell alcohol in his or her shop. And the fact that they don't sell alcohol in their shop or any beverages that contain that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not approve of, because of the fact that they have left this for Allah, for the sake of Allah, maybe there will be less shoppers who frequent their shops. And as a result, they're going to lose a lot of revenue. But they have held firm to their religion. And because of this, it's difficult for them to apply this. When everyone else, مثلا, is using the shubahat or making ta'weel of the Quran and the Sunnah and using qawa'id and principles like al-darurat tubih al-mahdhurat out of context, obviously, they stick firm to their religion and they don't sell their religion for a few pennies and a few darahim and dananir, but they hold firm to their religion. Okay, so that's just one example. So the person who holds firm to their religion on that day, the Prophet ﷺ said that they will have the reward of 50 of the companions. So that doesn't mean that they are elevated above the companions in rank on Yawm al-Qiyamah. No, the companions, their rank and their daraja is preserved. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there will never be anyone who comes after the companions who is more virtuous or even equal in stature in the sight of Allah to the companions. That's never going to happen. However, the hadith clearly tells us whoever does righteous actions, then this person will be considered, their actions, they will have the reward of 50 of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that's with regards to this hadith. Hadith number 7, or dalil number 7. Before I move on, let me just look if anyone has any questions. So at what point did the Prophet say, upon you is yourself, that you don't need to do amr bil ma'ruf? Alaykum, the hadith is clear. Tamiru bil ma'ruf wa tanahaw anil munkar. You do righteous actions. You enjoin that which is good, forbid that which is evil, until حتى إذا رأيتم شحا مطاعا وهوى متبعا ودنيا مؤثرة. And then he says فعليك بنفسك ودع عنك العوام. So you have to enjoin that which is good, forbid that which is evil. And the scholars رحمه الله تعالى, this tafsir, they say until you reach a point where enjoining that which is good or forbidding that which is evil becomes more harmful, then more harm comes from it, from good. Okay, but the general rule of thumb is that we have to enjoin that which is good and forbid that which is evil. Okay, and until more harm than good comes from this. Okay, until all of the things that the Prophet mentions are met, until you see شحا مطاعا هوى متبعا دنيا مؤثرة إعجاب كل ذي رأي برأيه. When everyone is amazed with their own opinion, like you see nowadays, everyone has an opinion about everything in Islam. When a calamity strikes, when something happens, everyone has their own opinion. I think this should happen, or I think that should happen. قليل يعني we live in an era where where everyone must, from everyone, whether they are experts or whether they are ignorant, or whether everyone has an opinion about everything. And this is literally what the Prophet ﷺ is referring to. So until you see this, فَعَلَيْكَ بِنَفْسِكَ, focus on yourself and those you are responsible for. Some scholars, they say if that happens, if everyone focuses on themselves, then in and of itself, this is if everyone focuses on themselves and does righteous actions and enjoy, then if all of the ummah do this, then الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر will not be, it will occur anyway. This will happen. It will be something that happens in and of themselves, because if everyone is righteous and everyone does what is obligatory upon them to do, and forces or basically encourages or commands those who they are responsible for to do amr bil ma'ruf and nahy 'anil munkar, if everyone does this, then this itself is al-amr bil ma'ruf and nahy 'anil munkar. However, the hadith is clear. Until these things occur, we still have to do amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy 'anil munkar. Shuh means miserliness. It means bukhl. It means being stingy. It means choosing the dunya here in this context, choosing the dunya over the akhirah. Preferring the life of this world, meaning following into haram. Yeah, that's one of falling into haram. Yes, that's one of its meaning. People commit sins. Every single person commits sins. However, dunya mu'thara means if someone prefers the dunya from their hal and their state in every affair, in everything that they do, is that they prefer the dunya over the akhirah in everything that they do. Whereas technically speaking, if someone commits a sin, then yes, for in that particular moment they chose the dunya over the akhirah in that particular moment, and obviously they have to then repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if this is their sijiyya, if this is their situation in everything that they do, they choose the dunya over the akhirah in everything that they do, then this person obviously is in grave danger, wal-'iyadhu billah, is in grave danger, wal-'iyadhu billah. Now, the types of righteous actions, that's a very good question, that could gain the reward of 50 are any type of righteous actions. It could be the salah, it could be the recitation of the Quran, hajj, umrah, saying assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, wearing the hijab, making sure that you don't touch your beard, etc. So any type of righteous action. Okay, leaving off the laymen, leave their opinions to themselves. Do not engage and do not indulge in their opinions. Do not listen to their opinions. Do not consider their opinions to be valid. Especially when it comes to the deen and the religion. That's what it means. Let's continue, inshallah. Dalil number 7. Hadith Ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma. So dalil number 7 is, he says, وَرَوَى ابْنُ وَضَّاحٍ. نعم. He says وروى ابن وضاح معناه من حديث ابن عمر رضي الله تعالى عنهما ولفظه إن من بعدكم أياما الصابر فيها المتمسك بمثل ما أنتم عليه اليوم له أجر 50 منكم. So this is similar to the previous hadith. Ibn Umar, he says in the hadith that the Prophet says, they will come days of patience. The one who holds firm المتمسك بمثل ما أنتم عليه اليوم, the one who holds firm on that day to that which you hold firm to, O companions, today, then this person, for them is the reward of 50 amongst you, amongst the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, the meaning of this hadith is correct, but the isnad and the chain of narration is considered to be incorrect or weak or da'if. Okay, and the dilala of this hadith is similar to the previous hadith that was mentioned. Dalil number 8 is, he says, ثم قال أنبأنا محمد بن سعيد. He says, أنبأنا محمد بن سعيد أنبأنا أسد قال أخبرنا سفيان بن عيينة عن أسلم البصري عن سعيد أخي الحسن يرفعه قال, he says that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إنكم اليوم على بينة من ربكم. Today you are upon clarity from your Lord. تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر. You enjoin that which is good and you forbid that which is evil. وتجاهدون في سبيل الله, and you strive for the sake of Allah in jihad. ولم تظهر فيكم السكرتان, and today the two intoxicants did not appear within you. The two intoxicants. Sakratul Jahl, the intoxicant known as ignorance. So here the Prophet ﷺ calls it an intoxication, and a disease, something that causes, an intoxicant is something that clouds judgment and it clouds someone's reasoning and ability to think rationally. Okay, that's what a sakra means. That's what an intoxication means. So a sakratul jahl, the intoxicant of ignorance, was sakratu hubbil aish, and the intoxicant of loving this life, the love of life and the love of luxury. And then he says, وَسَتُحَوَّلُونَ عَنْ ذَلِكَ, and the Prophet he says that this will not be the case forever. Yani, the fact that you are free from these two intoxicants, this will not be the case forever, and you will change. So here the Prophet, although he's talking to the companions, he's talking to the ummah generally, through the companions. Okay, because the companions themselves did not change, alhamdulillah. These two intoxicants didn't afflict the companions of the Prophet. They were saved from this, but he's talking to his ummah. وَسَتُحَوَّلُونَ عَنْ ذَلِكَ. Then he says, فَالْمُتَمَسِّكُ يَوْمَئِذٍ بِالْكِتَابِ وَالسُّنَّةِ لَهُ أَجْرُ خَمْسِينَ. So the one who holds firm on that day, yani the day that the Prophet is referring to, is the day when Islam becomes a stranger, on the last days. He says the one who holds firm to his religion on that day, to the Kitab and the Sunnah, okay, lahu ajru khamseen, has the reward of 50. Qila, it was said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, minhum, 50 from amongst them, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, qala, no, but rather 50 from amongst you, minkum. Okay, so this hadith is clear in its dilala, and it's similar to the two hadith that preceded it. So as you can see here, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is clearly describing the events that will occur just before the day of resurrection. من علامات هذا من دلائل نبوته. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling us that just before the day of judgment, in the last days, okay, although this isn't clear from the hadith, the Prophet doesn't actually specify that it is from the last days, but we know that from other narrations and other hadith that this is what will happen to the ummah in the last days, that these two, he tells us that two intoxicants will afflict the ummah. The first intoxicant is sakratul jahl, the intoxicant or intoxication known as ignorance, jahl. And the cure and the ilaj and the treatment for al-jahl is mada? Is al-ilm. And this is why Ibn al-Qayyim, he has a famous line of poetry where he says, وَالْجَهْلُ دَاءٌ قَاتِلٌ وَشِفَاؤُهُ أَمْرَانِ فِي التَّرْكِيبِ مُتَّفَقَانِ. He says that al-jahl, ignorance, is da'un qatilun, is a disease that kills. And its cure are two things that there is a consensus that these two things cure ignorance. And these two things is knowledge of the kitab and knowledge of the sunnah, which is clearly mentioned here in this hadith. فَالْمُتَمَسِّكُ يَوْمَئِذٍ بِالْكِتَابِ وَالسُّنَّةِ. So here the Prophet tells us that there are two intoxicants, and he tells us of the cure to these two intoxicants in the same hadith. So the first intoxicant is al-jahl, is ignorance, and the second intoxicant is the love of this life, hubbul aish, hubbul dunya, the love of this life, the love of luxury, the love of living in luxury. Yani these are two intoxicants. And he tells us that the person who holds firm to the Kitab and the Sunnah is saved from these two intoxicants. And the only way to be saved from these two intoxicants, because obviously knowledge of the Kitab and the Sunnah we're not born with the knowledge of the Kitab and the Sunnah. We have to actually go and strive for it. So with ilm, with knowledge, can we be saved? So knowledge, al-ilmu bil-shari'ati, knowledge of the sharia, knowledge of the deen, this is the only way that we can be saved as an ummah, okay? And also not to, and not, you don't have to mention an opinion in everything. Okay, sometimes it's good, in fact, every time it's good to be silent. This is why the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Man samata naja. Man samata naja. Whoever is silent, naja, is saved. Whoever is silent is saved, is in salvation. Now, so that's regarding dalil number 8. Dalil number 9, he says, وَلَهُ بِإِسْنَادٍ عَنِ الْمَعَافِرِ قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم, he says, طُوبَى لِلْغُرَبَاء, طُوبَى, may طُوبَى be given to the ghuraba, to the strangers. الَّذِينَ يَتَمَسَّكُونَ بِكِتَابِ اللَّهِ حِينَ يُتْرَكُ, those who hold firm to the book of Allah when it is abandoned. وَيَعْمَلُونَ بِالسُّنَّةِ حِينَ تُطْفَأ, and they act in accordance to the sunnah حِينَ تُطْفَأ, when it is extinguished. Okay, when it is extinguished. So in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ tells us that, and this hadith is, it's mursal. It's a hadith that is considered to be mursal, and the hadith that is mursal is considered to be weak. However, the meaning is still correct, but the narration itself, the isnad, is deemed as inauthentic, but the meaning of the hadith is correct. And the dilala of the hadith is tuba. Here the Prophet ﷺ, here the word tuba, which obviously is authentic itself in other narrations, and we've just mentioned some of those narrations. Here the Prophet ﷺ says tuba lil ghuraba, may glad tidings, may Jannah and paradise be given to the ghuraba, to the strangers. ونقف عند هذا الحد وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.